welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and with me today I have Justin again from the voice of college football in Nebraska. We'll have another guest joining us here soon, but for now, it's just me and Justin. Justin, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right, man. Just got off a Nebraska stream, ready to get this one rolling and talk a little the rest of the Big Ten, see where we go.
Very good. Yeah, we're bouncing from stream to stream to stream, going everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But bringing you a good show tonight because we have a lot to discuss. We have Jedd Fisch to discuss, going to Washington after the Kalen DeBoer departure. Unlike all those national media shows who just want to talk about Alabama, we're actually going to talk about Washington because this is a Big Ten show, and you're probably a Big Ten fan and want to hear about that and not about the stupid SEC. So Congratulations. You have somebody who talks about the Big Ten here. We're also going to talk a lot about Michigan tonight. Not only are we going to talk about who's going to replace JJ McCarthy, we're going to talk a little bit about the defense. We're going to talk about Blake Corum also leaving, but Donovan Edwards is coming back, so that's really good news. You know, what are some proper expectations for Michigan coming in 2024? And then we're also going to talk through some of these contract demands that Jim Harbaugh is getting to. I don't know if they're demands. I don't know who leaked it, but it's definitely interesting information. We'll get the guys' thoughts on that. And then finally, we'll end it up with some coach rankings, which everybody will just completely agree with. Nobody will have any problems with, and everybody will just, tell us great job. Right, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
That's how that normally goes.
Per usual. Everybody else is the expert but us.
My favorite is when somebody pulls out like some kind of stat from out of nowhere. They just like, this person has the most Big Ten wins of the last 12 years. And like, yeah, no duh, Kirk Ferentz has the most Big Ten wins after the last 12. He's the only coach that's been here for 12 years.
Exactly. And it's like no matter what, like somebody's gonna have an issue with it, but it's such an ambiguous thing, yet everybody thinks it's very concrete and they have the evidence. Yeah. So we'll see.
My thing is I always tell people, why don't you go through the exercise? You rank them all and see what you think. You know?
Last time they had an issue with my QB ranking, my Maryland QB ranking, and then Talia transferred out. So we'll see.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. Well, we'll get to the introducing shows and stuff later on, but I just do want to remind you, Big Banter Sports, go to bigbantersportsmedia.com or bigbantersports.com for all your Big Ten media needs. And also, please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. Helps people figure out about the channel. And it lets other people know that we do talk Big Ten here and not just those stupid SEC schools, because who wants to hear about the SEC all the time? I don't want to, but apparently everybody else thinks they do, which is stupid. So
yeah, they're going on the downslide. Don't worry.
Yeah. Now that they've lost Nick Saban, they're down bad. So
something we can all agree on.
Yeah, they got Kirby Smart, and that's about it. And then the rest of the coaches in that conference, not good.
Trash.
Not good. So, all right, let's go to our first subject here. We have Jedd Fisch is the new head coach at Washington. Of course, Kalen DeBoer moved to Alabama, took Ryan Grubb with him. I believe he took the wide receivers coach with them as well. So Jedd Fisch is coming in. He could keep some guys. He could rehire or hire some new guys. We'll see kind of what goes down there. I got to be honest, Justin, this was not like my favorite hire when I first heard about it. I've known about Jedd Fisch, but the more I dig into it, the more I look into it, I really like this hire. I think this was a good hire by Washington. Heard of some other possible candidates, and I think I like this hire, and I think it's a good one. What are your thoughts?
So, for me, the argument about, for and against the hire, okay, so looking at, it depends on how you look at it, I think. So based on how quickly things unfolded with DeBoer to Bama, and they had a 2-day turnaround to make this hire, I think they did excellent, just based on that. Now, looking at Jedd Fisch as a coach, right? And there's a lot to like there. Again, look at that Arizona team he turned around. I mean, they were horrendous. I live in Arizona, so, I follow the Arizona teams a little closer than most. That team was really bad. And so I think it depends on the criteria. He does have Big Ten coaching experience when he's OC of Michigan for a couple of years, but the pros, of course, are that the Big Ten experience, and then the turnaround that he had at Arizona 2021, took them last year. I think they finished 11th in the poll and had a bowl win against Oklahoma. So The only downsides there, or the biggest downsides, is he's never stayed anywhere for an extended period of time. Like, just brushing over, like, his Wikipedia page and look at the places he's been. 14 different jobs and since 2000.
He's never been anywhere for longer than 3 years.
I saw that stat somewhere, and I was like, and then I looked at the Wikipedia, and it's just job after job after job. So,
Yep.
And one of the biggest things that I, before I saw that, because I saw that earlier, but just one of the biggest sticking points about Jedd Fisch that when I first heard about the hire is just no sustained success anywhere yet. And that's the one drawback. It's like, yes, you can come in and you can do a quick turnaround, but like, look at Frost with UCF, and then look at what he did at Nebraska, with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has experience turning around multiple programs. And Jedd Fisch has been good at a lot of places, but I just want to see it for longer, and just curious to how that turns out. But I would say, just overall, it's a based on the circumstances they were in and the position they were in, I think it's a really good hire based on that, the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think we have to also recognize, the expectations for Washington. Washington did make the national championship, but Washington is not a premier job in college football. And that's no fault to Washington. A lot of that is just location, right? I mean, when you're recruiting, one of the reasons why Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, these type of schools are going to be considered such good jobs is because there is so much good talent down there. However, I do think that what we're seeing nowadays is a lot of that is not so much the case as it used to be. And many people will tell me, oh, well, John, the only reason we have 6-year, 7-year guys is because of COVID. And yes, to a certain extent, you are correct. But I also think that a lot of these schools are going to be able to pay their players to keep them. I don't mean to make this an Ohio State show or anything like that, but I do want to bring them up as an example, because what Ohio State has done this season is they've used NIL in a way that we've not really seen to the level that they're doing it, right? We've seen that people do it this way, but not to this level, to where Ohio State essentially said, we're going to throw all our NIL at all of these players to come back. I mean, the only two players that left Ohio State were Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mike Hall, the starting defensive tackle and the starting wide receiver, who, is probably going to be a top 5 pick.
Yep.
And so what we've seen here is this kind of new realization that NIL isn't just used to get these new recruits there, but you can also bring in really good players and possibly tell them, hey, dude, you're going to be a 6th-round pick. Why not come back and try to be a 5th-round pick? Why not come back and try to be a 4th-round pick? This isn't a situation where, Michigan just basically showed us the blueprint, right? I mean, they have all these guys leaving, and one of the reasons they do is because a lot of these guys are just out of eligibility.
Yep.
And so for me, it's like Michigan showed the blueprint. Ohio State's doing it now, and I think other teams are going to catch on really fast. So we've got John here. I'm going to bring him in as well.
Hey, guys.
Hey, John. I think
What's going on, John?
I had just mentioned Michigan, and I think that you heard that and you came in right at that time.
Absolutely. Anytime Michigan's mentioned, there I am. No, we just wrapped the Michigan live show and just hopped right over here and wanted to thank you for having me on, and excited to chop up Big Ten.
For sure, yeah. We're going to get into Michigan in just a minute. We're talking the Washington hire right now, and I was just talking about the program of Washington and how Washington, even though in the past it's not been seen as a great program because of location, your Wolverines just showed us you don't have to be a hotbed for recruiting to be a good program to make it to the to win the national championship, right? Washington made it there as well. And so I would love to get your perspective on that, John. Jedd Fisch is coming in here. Do we see Washington as a top tier program that hires, or is this kind of like a program where it's like, yes, this is a good hire, but they're still growing off of this national championship visit? What are your thoughts?
So Washington is a program, I don't think it's been like one of those perennial powers. They had some successful years in the 90s, obviously national champion the year of my birth, 91. So that was great. And other than that, they've kind of been up and down. They had some decent years, with previous coaches, had some rough years with Lake, and then they bring in DeBoer, and I thought it was a great hire at the time. And within 2 years, they take it from a 4-8 program, a dumpster fire program, to the national championship. And he was able to do that. But, Washington, it's tough. It's they don't exactly have you'd think they have all this support with NIL, and they do have a lot of money in the area, and they do have donors that donate to the school, the university, but it seems like their NIL isn't what it could be. Seems like Oregon kind of has them a little bit when it comes to that. You've got the Nike money and everything like that. So I'd say this. I'd say they're an emerging program. I think you could safely put them in an emerging program. And I think the Jedd Fisch hire was probably the best hire they could possibly ask for. I was going to say, if for any reason Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL and Sharon Moore gets like a year suspension or whatever, and they can't hire him as the head coach, Jedd Fisch was on my very short list, along with Kalen DeBoer, of outside hires. So Washington nailed it with this hire. He obviously showed he could turn around Arizona, and he was a big part of the reason that the early Michigan offense years were successful, because the second he left, and we all saw it in the Amazon documentary All or Nothing, and that year it was nothing, 2017 with John O'Corn, and you saw what Pep Hamilton and Drevno could do, and you realized that Jedd Fisch was doing a lot for that offense. So I think Washington nailed it with this, and I think they did a good hire.
So would you say A+ then? Is that kind of the grade you would give on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if A+ was like Kirby, then I would say
I think you have to.
I can't go A+.
You can't go A+. I would think you have to kind of, like we talked about, what is the program and what can they hire? Obviously, Washington's not going to hire Kirby Smart.
And so go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll give.
No, I was just going to say, well, obviously they can't hire Kirby Smart, so you have to think through, like, of the candidates they could hire, who was the best, and did they hire the best one? Your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah. So, and I do agree with that, right? I think this was, like I said, with the 2-day turnaround, this was an excellent hire. I think it just depends on how we're grading it, because on the surface, right? Are we grading this as, if we're grading it right now, just based on the situation, I think you can give it a solid A+. But are we grading it as how we project this to work for the future of Washington? And in that case, I think that varies tremendously on the expectations of Washington. Like, they made the national championship this year, but going into next year, it can't be every year's national championship expectations, especially with the churn and turnover on this roster. So what are we calculating moving forward as success for them, and what are the expectations for them? I think maybe on the surface, I could agree, just based on the situation, A+. Moving forward, just in the long term, I would say probably I'd give it maybe like a B- to start. It's got to start as almost an incomplete grade, but just based on that, I would say, based on his experience and the fact that he does have Big Ten, experience and West Coast ties and all of that, I would say B-. But yeah, I agree with the way John D'Adamo, the way you graded it. I would say A+ based on that. And that's kind of the first thing I said. It was an excellent hire based on the surface, but long term, I would give it a B- right now. I think it's fair.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher than you, Justin. I would give it a B+. And one of the reasons why I'm not willing to go into the age range is kind of like the A range is kind of like what we discussed earlier. He's not been at a job longer than 3 years. John kind of hit it on the head. Hey, if we need somebody to come in for a year or two and then wants to bolt or something like that, here we go. This is the guy. Because that's kind of been his MO, right? He's been a head coach at Arizona. I think he was an interim at UCLA for like a bowl game or something like that.
But he went 1-1 there.
Yeah, 1-1 there. He lost the bowl game, but he won the final game of the season.
Yep.
But this is a situation where it's like, Washington's getting into the Big Ten. They're not making that full money yet. Even if he is only there for, say, 3-4 years, I don't know if it's the worst thing ever, because by that time they should be making that nice Big Ten money and be able to attract somebody even better than Jedd Fisch, if Jedd Fisch is going to be able to come in and keep this rolling. I'm not saying they go back to the national championship, but I would say consistent top 5 team in the Big Ten is kind of what you're looking for. Do you agree with that, John?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like who is better? I guess that's kind of the angle I would take. Like, who could they have gotten better?
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody.
Reasonably.
Yeah. No, this was the best they could have done. Yeah.
Like within 2 days.
And
too.
so I grade based on that. Like, okay, if Kirby Smart was in play, okay, right? But he's not. And so who could they reasonably get back? And so you look at their previous coaches, that I think are happy doing media, and they don't want to be doing this anymore. So Jedd Fisch seemed to be the guy. And so from that perspective, I kind of have to give the nod to him.
I think with that criteria, that's perfectly fair. I think it's just a little bit different criteria, which we all have a different take based on how we're grading and stuff like that. And I do prefer to grade these surface level just because, you can grade these all you want, but they don't ever pan out, the way they're graded to start. So,
all right. Very good. All right, let's move on to John's guys. We have
here we go.
Michigan replacing JJ McCarthy. Now, obviously, they have many players that they're trying to replace, but obviously, the quarterback is the number one that you look for most often. I'm sure we'll get into Donovan Edwards coming back, which is fantastic for Michigan. Going into the season, I think he is just a great athlete. Blake Corum has tremendous vision. I said that on Twitter the other day. Some of the best vision I've ever seen in a running back. Boy, am I glad he's gone. He killed my Buckeyes. But and they're bringing some good defensive guys in, or some good defensive guys back. It's not just they're losing their whole defense. They have defensive tackles who are coming back. Keon Sabb is a great player that I love to watch. Will Johnson, his dude's gonna be a first-round pick. If he went to the draft today, he'd probably be a first-round pick. So they have a lot of pieces coming back, but I think the one they're thinking the most about is JJ McCarthy. Who's going to come in for that? John, what are some of your thoughts on replacing JJ McCarthy?
Yeah. So obviously, I was just on talking about a lot of these topics, and it's tough because obviously JJ McCarthy might have been one of the best quarterbacks Michigan has seen since the 40s. You go back to somebody like a Tom Harmon. Somebody like that. But what's that?
Did you get to watch him play?
Not personally. Well, no, I went in my time machine. I've been building a time machine and, just zap back there. But no, JJ really, he's tough to replace, but you have to do it. A big part of this is what happens with Harbaugh too. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. What happens with Harbaugh? Does he stay or go? But regardless, you have on the QB room, you've got a couple. You've got Alex Orji, who we saw in limited play this season as a runner, primarily running. He was assigned RPOs, and he tended to pick the R, and he didn't really pick the P ever in the run pass option. But if he can throw, which I think in the spring game once or twice we saw him throw. Allegedly, he has a good arm. We just haven't really seen it.
I imagine it's very strong, at the very least.
If he can work with Kirk Campbell and get that arm up, then Alex Orji is going to be tough to beat. But you do have, of course, Jaden Denegal, who's been contending. You have Jaden Davis, who, yes, he's a freshman, but he did enroll. He came in early and was with the team for the Rose Bowl and for the national championship and was practicing with the team. So that always helps when you're up against some other players and you still have spring ball and fall camp to go. He might actually be in the running. But I would give it at this point to Alex Orji, unless they bring in, I thought they might go for Talia, but he got rejected by the NCAA for his 7th year of eligibility. They said, 7 years, just too much, even though we've let all these other people have 8 years. That's too much for you, Talia. Go to the NFL and go do that. So now he's now preparing for his NFL, where he's going to go in the draft. So for me, it's Alex Orji as the front runner right now. But we'll see spring camp. We'll see the spring game, and they'll get to compete against each other in the spring game, and then we'll really get to understand where they're all at.
Yeah, I think Alex Orji, I mean, obviously he's a fantastic athlete. If you've seen pictures of him, he huge. I mean, the guy's just huge. And so, like I said, I imagine he has to have a strong arm. He looks like he's been in the weight room every single day. So
that's Ben Herbert, man. Ben Herbert, strength and conditioning coach.
Yes,
he's the Mickey Marotti of Michigan, and brought the mental toughness up, the physical toughness up, and Alex Orji is just one example of that.
Oh yeah, and people don't realize how much strength and conditioning coaches help with culture and everything else like that as well. Yep. That really was kind of the turning point for Michigan, and you can tell in the toughness and everything that they display on the field as well. Justin, what are your thoughts on replacing JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean the exciting option is Jaden Davis, because he's supposed to be their future quarterback. But looking at it just from, and not a lot of experience, when I looked at Alex Orji's numbers, there's not a lot. I think he was, like he said, he ran the ball. And I think it's attempted one pass in 2 years. I saw that somewhere. So I think with Alex Orji, it's like, it's almost like unless they're able to kind of somewhat land a transfer portal quarterback of some kind, I think you have to go, unless Jaden Davis completely just rocks, blows their shoes off in the spring game. And in the spring, he's going to have to come on strong and just absolutely blow Alex Orji out of the water, I think, to win that job. So I think it's his to lose.
Yeah, I think so as well. And, I think about it too. Like, obviously I'm not saying I have no idea about Alex Orji's passing or anything like that. But when I think back to Michigan's history, I think of a guy like Denard Robinson, who, obviously made a living just being a fantastic athlete. Obviously, he had his arm struggles, which limited him as a passer, which, that stunk for him. But, he was obviously still a great quarterback in college and had a professional career as well. However, I think back to that and I think about it. If Sherrone Moore, I'm not making that prediction. I actually think Jim Harbaugh comes back. I said that in the last episode. But if, just Sherrone Moore is the guy, I think he's perfectly fine with having a running quarterback like Alex Orji, who does more of the R instead of the P, like you said, in the run pass option, John. Because at the end of the day, that's what Sherrone Moore wants to do. Sherrone Moore wants to pound the rock. He wants to run the ball. And, until somebody stops him, I don't see why he wouldn't want to just keep doing that. So put the guy out there who's a fantastic athlete, and gives you one more blocker when he does run the ball, because you don't have the quarterback sitting back there handing it off. So a couple other names that when I was researching it and kind of thinking through it, Jaden DeLora from Arizona, he got, I think it was either benched this year or last year. I think he played in 2022. So, he's in the transfer portal from Arizona. Actually a pretty good quarterback. Noah Fafita was just really good himself.
I think Jeff Sims might still be in the portal.
Sure.
If you want him.
Hey, there you go.
Obviously I'm a Buckeye fan. I don't know if I'd wish that on Michigan though.
I think that's one thing you'd want to wish on them.
I know, but
I will say this.
I have a heart,
he might be so we had Alan Bowman transfer in, and he was like the third or fourth string. I mean, Jeff Sims could do that and be a body in the QB room.
Yeah, just better hope
it's not impossible.
It's not.
Yeah.
And then another name I found, which I haven't heard anything about this guy. I tried to do some research on him before the show, but I couldn't find much. Jordan McLeod from James Madison. The guy's been around quite a few places. He was at USF. He was at James Madison. I think he was at one other spot before James Madison, but he had a really good passer rating in 2022. He was up there with kind of the Curtis Rourke, CJ Stroud, who's the other one? Caleb Williams as well. His QBR was really, really high. So,
wow.
That would be another option that Michigan might be looking at. We'll see. I have no idea. But we always have the spring portal left as well. So, but I think that would be the one that if Michigan did decide to go after a Jordan McLeod, that would be the guy that I think could really excite Michigan fans and be kind of an underrated name that people people aren't sure of. Have you thought of any other transfer quarterback guys, John?
Well, I was looking at Talia, and then obviously we got the news today about that. I like Jordan McLeod. I'm looking at his stats now. Anybody who has 3,657 passing yards and 35 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, they're okay by me. And if you're going to bring a guy like that in to compete against Alex Orji, compete against Jaden Davis, compete against Jaden Denegal, that'll be one hell of a quarterback competition. And may the best man win. So I think that's the type of person you bring in to make it like a 3 or 4 way competition for starter.
Yeah, I agree.
How funny would it be if Jalen Milroe, ended up in the portal and ended up at Michigan?
That would be funny.
That would be something, because they scouted him in game. I think
Sharon Moore was playing the ball.
He can and he can throw a football too. You see that Auburn, that pass against Auburn to win the game? That was incredible.
Yep.
John, I do want to get your take on a few other positions. Obviously, like we talked about Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. I think we'll take that over. But we have some other guys leaving. Some offensive linemen. Zak Zaniter kind of leads the pack there, but some wide receivers and Robin Wilson, Cornelius Johnson as well. I don't know if you feel the same as me. I'm less concerned about the defense just because we saw a lot of underclassmen play, but I'm more concerned about kind of the offensive line and the wide receivers. It sounds so weird saying I'm concerned about Michigan's offensive line. I'm not concerned that they won't be good. I'm kind of concerned who they're going to bring in. Do you have any thoughts on wide receivers and offensive linemen coming in for next year?
Yeah, so with wide receiver talent, you do have Tyler Morris, who will probably be in one of the 3 starting positions. You've got people like Samaj Morgan. You've got Carmelo English. Peyton O'Leary might actually slide to a wide receiver position. I believe he's tight end at the moment, but they might slide him over to wide receiver. However, I think that is definitely a position where you look at the transfer portal, you look at, you might see if you can get somebody from Alabama, because clearly everybody's getting people from Alabama these days. Maybe you get somebody from a Georgia or somebody because they have so much talent that not everybody can play over there. Well, guess what? Here, wide receiver, it's kind of like when you're a good one, you're probably going to start, because our wide receiver talent is the one area that I think, people ask me, well, what does Ohio State have over Michigan? And I said, well, one thing that Ohio State still has is wide receiver coaching and wide receiver recruiting. And that's one area that we could really improve. So I would love to see them bring in a wide receiver in the transfer portal. As far as O-line, people actually don't realize that we have an O-line that is pretty solid. So we've got Greg Crippen, who's going to probably be center unless they bring someone in. You've got Giovanni El-Hadi, who was a redshirt sophomore this year. So he'll be probably in a starting position. And then from there, you've got a couple people who, they might either keep. I guarantee you that's one area that they will use the transfer portal, because every single year they've gotten a couple of transfers to compete with the existing talent, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. But that's what Sharon Moore does. He tries to grow the players that they have, but then to compete against them, he brings in a Ladarius Henderson, or he brings in a Drake Nugent to compete against the existing players. And I think that's a great way of doing it, because then it's like whoever's the best is going to play. So I'm not too concerned. O-line is going to change a lot, obviously. Like, pretty much everyone is going to look different. I don't think anybody's coming back from the starting lineup at all. So it's going to look very different on the O-line. But that's the nature of the beast. You stack it up, win a title. Then you're going to need to replace some people. But I think Michigan is in decent shape. Obviously, I feel way better about the defense than I do about the offense because there's a lot of unknowns about the offense. But I think we're going to be okay at those positions. And the fact is, this is a coaching staff. Sharon Moore, regardless of what happens with Harbaugh, Sharon Moore knows how to scout. These coaches know how to scout people from Coastal Carolina who then make huge plays against Alabama in the game. So if there's one thing I have very little doubt on is this coaching staff knows how to scout talent that may not be a 5-star. They don't use 247 as a shopping list. They actually dig deep and they look at the real talent at every level of football and who's dominating their position group. And so I think at least from there, I don't have too much doubt in Michigan's ability to do that.
That's all I was going to say was, even if you do lose everybody, if there's a coach that you want for the offensive line that can replace some guys, it's Sharon Moore. He's proven to be one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation. And who knows, he could turn out to be one of the best head coaches in the nation too, if something happens. We'll see. Speaking of the head coach of Michigan, Justin, we'll let you start with this one. Jim Harbaugh has some contract demands that were reported by Dan Wetzel on Yahoo Sports. I don't know if you'd call them demands. That was just kind of the word that popped into my head about it. So I'm just going to read a section of his article really fast that gives us a good perspective here. Dan says, specifically, sources said Harbaugh is seeking language that would grant him immunity from termination from any finding or sanction that could arise from multiple current NCAA investigations into the program. Another piece of this is he also wants to push back the time when he would sign the contract. That way his buyout would not be as large. So these are kind of the two big things that Jim Harbaugh wants, is he wants to delay the signing so that way a buyout is not at large, presumably so that way an NFL team could sign him if they want to. That's just my thought. I don't know if that's, for sure. That's just kind of putting pieces together. And then the other piece of it, like I said, is immunity in case there is some kind of sanction or penalty on him. Justin, I got to know, is Jim Harbaugh asking for too much here?
So I think this also depends, right? I do think it is a lot to ask. I think what he's doing is he's just trying to set his price based on, what he did this season, what he was able to do and riding the high. And I think it's smart of him to do this, because one of the biggest things we talked about, previously when it was the indication that was he might leave, was one of the big reasons we thought that was because of the implications that may still come because of the NCAA's side of this investigation and the reports that he lied on certain factors of it. And I don't know how true that is, so I won't speak on that part of it. But is he looking for these protections to make it easier to land an NFL job eventually? Is he looking for these protections because the Big Ten is changing so drastically next year and it's going to be harder to make it to a championship with the playoff next year? Is he just trying to make sure that he has these things in place so that way, in case he doesn't reach the mountaintop again, he's in a great position? But then at the same time, as a athletic director, if you where is too much power for your coach? At a certain point, what is the middle ground between we can meet in the middle, but I'm not giving you too much power. I'm not giving you too much leeway to where you're kind of calling the shots. And the one thing I think, if it's true that he is actually asking, because a lot of this is speculation, I don't know how much of it is confirmed concrete, but if that is the case, I think it just kind of puts him on an island by himself in terms of, his staff. I want to be protected versus his staff, which I think might more be an indication that potentially, this is more so to do with a potential, NFL role. But, I think the protection of me, like just me, just kind of comes across a little just arrogant, if that's true. Now that's just me, because I think he would probably try to go to bat for his staff as well if he had the possibility to do that. Sure. So yeah, I know John's ready to take off on this, but that's my take. So John, go ahead.
So Fun fact, today I actually asked one of the Michigan regents, hey, bud, how's it going with the Harbaugh contract, and where is it, and can we just give him whatever he wants so we can get this thing done? The man just won a national championship. This was Regent Acker, and Regent Acker responded to me, basically saying he loves Jim Harbaugh, thinks he's the best coach in the country, wants to coach at Michigan for a long time, as long as Harbaugh wants to. He's also not interested in negotiating through the public or through the press. So basically, buzz off. But thanks for your post, and so that was fun, and we got to talk about that on air a bit too. So we appreciate Regent Acker for being willing to say anything about it, because right. It's obviously a lot of leaks and a lot of rumors and nothing really confirmed. Do I think there's some truth to Harbaugh trying to get some immunity and some protections in case the NCAA comes down? Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Why? Well, it's very simple. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think one is that he probably thinks he's innocent and he thinks his coaching staff is innocent. I believe that. But I also think it's fair to try to get some protections in there, because the NCAA has proven to be a loose cannon. They just out of nowhere shot the FSU with like a whole bunch of penalties for NIL. Just out of nowhere, just boom, here you go. Obviously they went after Michigan for Burgergate, and a level 1 violation and multiple level 2 violations. And we still don't know what they're going to levy for Stallions. So because of that, I don't blame the guy at all for trying to put in some protections and for saying you can't fire me for cause. If the NCAA just decides they woke up on the wrong side of the bed and, we're going to slap an 8-year show cause on Michigan, so I think it's fair. However, on the other side of the coin, I think he wants to go to the NFL. I think there's a part of him that he's so competitive. He's at the Thanksgiving table with John Harbaugh, who won that Super Bowl, last play of the game, basically, and against his brother, right, against Jim. So that eats at him. I'm sure it does, because they've been competing against each other since the womb, and they're a very competitive family. And Harbaugh even mentioned it in the press conference. I can now sit at the adults table because my dad won a national championship, my brother won a Super Bowl, and now I won a national championship, so I can sit at the adults table. I mean, that's real. That's really the inner dynamic in that family. So I think he's going to pursue his options. He's going to look at, he met with the Chargers yesterday or today. He met with the Chargers, and he's probably going to meet with the Cowboys. And he's going to vet his options, and he's going to see what will make sense for him for the next couple years of his coaching career.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said, John, and people might be surprised at me saying this because I'm an Ohio State fan, but I don't think Jim Harbaugh's being greedy at all. I don't think he's asking for too much at all. In fact, Sonny put up a lot of the thoughts I was having. Harbaugh has so much leverage as a head coach. Can in today's world, beloved alum, he took a pay cut before he just won a national championship. I completely agree with Sonny. I think the pay cut thing is huge that he took before. I think the fact that he was willing to be there for the rest of the university during the COVID times as well, I think that gained him some huge social leverage. And at the end of the day, I think he can spend it now because, like you said, John, he probably can go to the NFL if he wants to, and I think it's a smart move by him to wait to sign the contract until he knows he's not going to the NFL. But I have no problem with Jim Harbaugh asking for this stuff. Man, if you just won a national championship, if you just had one of the best 3-year stretches in all of college football history, not just Michigan history, but one of the best in all of college football history, how could you not? And then, on top of that, if Michigan decides, no thanks, we're moving on from here, they have Sherrone Moore in the waiting, so he knows that he has built up a coach behind him who is going to do a very good job, most likely, but a very good job behind him and keep the program rolling. He built up the strength and conditioning, like we talked about earlier. He built up this other head coach, and he built up the talent. So, in my mind, I don't blame Jim Harbaugh at all. And the only way I see there being a loss here, the only way is if something happens with the NCAA, Jim sticks around, and then they're forced to continue to pay Jim's contract, even if sanctions are levied against them, which, like you said, John, we have really no idea what the NCAA is going to do. I've heard certain things, I've put them out there before, but at the end of the day, the NCAA seems to go back and forth on this. One day they want to get rid of everything, the next day it's all fair and square and nothing was done wrong. And so, who really knows what exactly is going to happen? And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm saying, protect me if something does happen, because we have a loose cannon NCAA ready to take things out here. So Justin, real quick, let us know. Do you think Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL next season? Yes or no?
Next season?
Or I guess he's in there in 2024.
At this point, I do think that Michigan wants to keep him so bad that they will give him enough of these stipulations, whatever they are that he's asking. They will do whatever they can to get him back, in my opinion. And it's going to come down to whether he likes these open positions right now. And, there's not a lot to choose from. Dallas might be the most enticing, and he can also leverage Dallas. So I think that's a big threat, just because Jerry Jones will open his pockets if need be. So I think that's the biggest threat. But overall, I don't know how dead set the Cowboys are on him or anything like that. And I think he would probably want to figure that out sooner rather than later. And so I think he'll come back. And I think a lot of these protections, like I said, I totally get it. I think they're just to set him up for that potential move in case he does come back this next year. And I think at that point, it's going to be a year by year basis.
Yeah. Great thought. What do you think, John?
Well, I've said this for months. We did an episode of Michigan Wolverines Live called The Last Dance months and months ago, before basically right after Burgergate came out. And I said he gone after this year. This is the last dance year. It's this year or bust to win the Natty. And then Jim Harbaugh is going to pursue his NFL dreams. So he doesn't have to deal with the NCAA. And he can go and shape an NFL team to his image, whatever one he decides to take. And the thing is, he's probably going to have like multiple offers, and even more teams that he'll have a first round, second round interview with.
Yep.
And then Michigan will try to match it and let the chips fall where they may. But I've said he's gone. If he stays, I'd be so happy to be wrong. But just based on what we've seen, he had a very good interview with the Chargers. And I think the opportunity to coach Justin Herbert, that he is such an amazing talent, and just the coaching malpractice on that Chargers team, like the fact that they haven't at least gone to one Super Bowl is coaching malpractice, in my opinion. Like, yeah, everybody's talking about the Eagles coach. Well, that guy got Jalen Hurts to the freaking Super Bowl like last year.
Yep.
He made a bad hire with Matt Patricia, but he's like, if we're going to compare, how about Staley just completely fumbling the bag of the Chargers? So I think the Chargers are going to be in play. The Cowboys, if Jerry Jones can actually swallow his pride, swallow his ego, his need for control, which has been an open secret for so long. They might, they have the money to pay him. They have they could give him a lot of what he wants. He'd have to deal with Dak Prescott and that whole situation, the $40 million for Dak Prescott. But I have a pretty strong feeling Mike McCarthy's getting fired because Jerry wants a Super Bowl. And the fact is McCarthy hasn't gotten it done. So I call it the Harbaugh sweepstakes. You're going to have multiple teams offering him somewhere between 12 to 20 million a year, and pretty much unlimited power and control. I think it's going to be harder for some teams to offer that than others, but it's really going to come down to, I think, ownership fit, GM fit. Is he allowed to pick his GM? because that's something else that he's going to try to do is pick his GM. He doesn't want to be the GM, but he wants to be able to name somebody who he's buddies with to be in that position. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, I just think there's too much smoke here, and it's just happened too often. And I think Sharon Moore is going to be your 2024 coach of the Michigan Wolverines, and Jim Harbaugh is going to be your 2024 coach of insert NFL team here who needs somebody who's a proven winner.
Yeah. And JR, just to bounce off that, like a few days ago, before these reports came out, I was leaning towards him going. I was pretty much dead set on him going, just based on, reaching the mountaintop, everything changing next year. Like I said, it's going to get harder to win in college football, to win in the Big Ten. And so, but if these are true and they give it to him, I'm just wondering if that is, if this leak is true and he's asking for these things and they give it to him, I'm wondering if there's just they're trying to get this done, sooner rather than later, and just get this locked up. Maybe Michigan tries to force that hand, and maybe they do agree to a lot of these things. It's going to be a very interesting process and fluid process. But I think personally, the Cowboys fit basically, but based on their team structure, what Harbaugh had at Michigan the most, versus the Chargers. Eckler's on the decline, and I think that's probably the best fit for him. So if they do end up firing Mike McCarthy, which I 100% think they will, if you look at Jerry Jones in that press box, it didn't look good. I think the Dallas Cowboys will be really, really hard to pass up. But right now, just, I'm not 100% sold on the Chargers, but, John would probably know more about the inside information about how that meeting went than me. But that's just my take on it. I just think I think there's a lot of variability, but I'm wondering how Michigan's approach to this, if they're going to try to just force his hand by giving him what he wants. So we'll see.
I'm surprised neither of you guys mentioned the Raiders with their rumor coming out that they're going to draft JJ McCarthy for him to come there. Which
why don't they just they need to get Antonio Pierce? Max Crosby already said he's going to leave. If they don't, Devontae Adams said he's going to leave. They need to hire Pierce.
The Raiders was my initial pick months and months ago. But with Antonio Pierce having so much support with the program, I think he's probably going to be the guy. The odds currently are Chargers at -150, and then not the head coach of an NFL team at +100. So Vegas knows something. The Chargers are in the lead tremendously. I think that the meeting apparently went pretty well. Because obviously, he did visit. He said Los Angeles is the happiest place on earth. And with that quarterback, I think he could see a quick route to a Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, he's 60. He's not going to be coaching at this team for 20, 30 years. He wants to win a Super Bowl quick. Yeah. And the way to do that, I think, is to get a generational quarterback right away, Justin Herbert, and build around him. Any position group that they're weak on, guess what? He can go get a Michigan Wolverine, because they're at practically every position. There's a Trevor Keegan, there's a Junior Colson, there's a somebody that Jim Harbaugh has personally worked with for years and years, knows that they're good, and will probably draft that player to shore up any weak position group that they have.
Yeah. I'm just imagining Jim Harbaugh with his little chicken farm in Los Angeles. That makes me happy to think about that. I've been saying from the beginning, I don't think he leaves. I do think the odds changing with the Chargers here, it was at like -500 or something like that at one point with Jim Harbaugh staying, and I was like, yeah, no way he's going. But apparently this Chargers interview went really, really well. So I don't know if they know something or they're just going off bets or whatever, but I still am like 55% that he's going to stay because I'm a little stubborn and don't want to say I was wrong, but I probably am wrong. He probably will be moving on, which is not like you said, John, it's not such a bad thing. Sharon Moore is going to be a really good coach for them. I think it's much better he leaves this season rather than last season. So
well, one thing I will say with that, I think the big loss will be that Jesse Minter will most likely go with Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I think that's the big loss.
Good point.
Because Like, do you get Clinkscale to level up? I mean, who do who continues? Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to hire from outside and change the scheme. The scheme works, right? This 4-2-5 that they have, the multiple defense that they have that they got from the Ravens, it's clearly working against the team that it needs to work against, which is Ohio State. It was brought in literally because we kept getting our asses kicked against Ohio State, and Don Brown's defense is getting figured out left and right. And they brought in, Jim calls his brother, says, hey, can you help me out? Well, yeah, I can give you Mike Macdonald or I can give you Jesse Minter. I'll pick Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald does a year, institutes the system, and now Jesse Minter's done it the last 2 years. And so I hope they pick someone who can continue that. If Jim Harbaugh is going to leave, pick someone who can continue what Mike Macdonald and Jesse Minter started.
I'd be okay with Don Brown coming back.
Yeah, right. I'm sure he would.
All right. We're pushing an hour here, so let's go ahead and get to our rankings here. Sure. Don't mind me,
John. I sent the list of items over late, so John might have to fly by the seat of his pants here.
All right, John. Yep. If the Twitter trolls get you, we'll just let them know John did this off of vibes instead of off of massive research. So
yes.
I'm in your spot there, Justin. There we go. I'm not a Nebraska fan. All right. Justin, we started with you last time. Let's go ahead and start with you this time. So the way we do this is we kind of snake. So we'll go Justin, we'll go me, we'll go John. John will pick his next one, then me, then Justin, and then so on and so forth. So Justin, who's your number one coach after 2023 in the Big Ten right now?
Matt Rule. No, I'm just playing. Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh. Got to be number one.
I agree. Jim Harbaugh is my number one as well. John, I think I can put it there for you, correct?
I was actually thinking about PJ Fleck. I really like the road
God,
the boat.
Don't do that, please.
Yeah, no. It's
I like
obviously
too much for you to do that.
Harbaugh won the freaking natty.
Yeah, you can't not put him first. All right, who's second for you, John?
Okay. This pains me to do it, but I'm going to say Ryan Day.
It's okay. I put Jim Harbaugh one. I think you can put Ryan Day too. Right? Yeah, I put Ryan Day too as well. He's not done so great in the big games and things like that, but I also look at this list and say who really has. So
right.
Ryan Day. Justin, are you along those same lines?
Yeah, I figured this would be 1 and 2. I almost wanted to mix things up and go James Franklin. I just couldn't do it. I absolutely couldn't.
You really have the Ohio State fans going after you.
I tried to mix it up, but I couldn't do that.
All right, so who's your number 3 then?
My number 3 is James Franklin.
Okay.
I'll go James Franklin at 3. Yeah, he's I know that Penn State's not quite over the hump, but I mean, I think they're a couple of pieces away from being, getting over that hump. I like James Franklin as a coach. It just maybe something I like in James Franklin. I'm partial to him, but I got him ranked 3.
I really wanted to do Kirk Ferentz here. I really wanted to mix it up because I figured you guys might go with James Franklin, but I don't think I can. I think I have to go James Franklin at 3. So I guess that gives you a hint to who my number 4 is. But yeah, James Franklin at 3. Who do you have, John?
Kirk Ferentz.
Oh, so you do? Okay.
No.
All right.
God.
I like
James Franklin. James Franklin is one of the most fraudulent coaches, I think, in the history of college football. He has skated in his career on one fluke win against Ohio State in 2016.
Dang, you're coming for his jugular.
He won against a depleted Utah team in the Rose Bowl. He cannot. Kirk Ferentz has actually won things. He's won the Big Ten West multiple years. He somehow gets 10 wins with defense alone. And he probably would be a playoff team if they had an offense. So, once he picks an OC that, is actually decent, they might be a real contender in the future. So I'm going Kirk Ferentz.
That's the problem though. They only have half a team and winning the Big Ten West ain't that hard.
True.
That was what I was going to say was that really is what kept me out of it is if Penn State was in the Big Ten West, I feel like they've won it just as many times, if not more than Iowa's won it.
Yeah, definitely more.
That's how I feel.
I could just,
but I respect your decision because I thought of it myself, John. So
I did. I absolutely did not think of Kirk Ferentz.
All right, who's your number 4 then, John?
Franklin.
I figured that's where we had to go. So, yeah, I know you're not going to like it, Justin, but I do have to go with Kirk Ferentz at 4. The longevity, the ability to coach when you just have zero offense. The way he's able to do that and still win games, like we said, part of that might just be because of the Big Ten West. However, I do think that is admirable enough to put him at number 4. Who's your number 4, Justin?
All right, go ahead and this one might be a little off of y'all's. I don't know where y'all got him. I like Greg Schiano here. I just love the way Rutgers, Rutgers coming into the Big Ten. It seemed like a massive mistake by them, and what he's been able to do there, bring the physicality of that team. I mean, they're for what they lack in terms of just resources. It's unreal what he's been able to do with that team, and so why Rutgers isn't one of the top programs. I think what he's done with that team is just excellent.
All right. Who's your number 5?
Number 5 is Matt Rule.
All right. I
had to do it. I had to throw him. I had to throw him up there at 5. Just not just what he did last year, but what he's been able to do improvement wise since he came in such a short amount of time. It's a night and day compared to what Nebraska has even been since 2016. It's been that long since Nebraska has even sniffed a winning record. And he did it. He won 5 games and nearly did it with, whatever that quarterback room was we had last year, and he's recruited well. So I might be a little biased here, but I'm gonna go Matt Rule 5.
I think it makes sense. I'm gonna go here, and you guys might disagree with me, probably will, but I'm going with Brett Bielema at 5.
Wow.
One of the reasons
That's
why
high.
is because he had his good seasons at Wisconsin. He's proved it in the Big Ten. And for me, that's going to be a lot is can you win in the Big Ten? Can you do these things? He did win at Wisconsin. I thought about Luke Fickell, but at the end of the day, I said, look, Luke Fickell has won at Cincinnati. Luke Fickell has not won in the Big Ten yet. We can give him the injuries and all that stuff last year. That's fine. But at the end of the day, Brett Bielema has won in the Big Ten, and he almost won the Big Ten West last year. He was actually a few plays away versus Michigan in winning the Big Ten West last year. So he is one of the few coaches that has given Jim Harbaugh a good game these past few years.
True.
And I think he's doing some really good stuff with an Illinois program that kind of like you said with Rutgers is just not been great of recent, and he's kind of turned it around. So John, who's your number 5?
I'm going for the Big Ten Coach of the Year, David Braun.
All right.
I thought Northwestern in my preseason predictions was going to go 2-10 with the scandal, the weenie wash, all the things that were going on with that program. David Braun was put in an almost impossible position. He was able to rally the team, somehow get to 8-5, including a bowl win. I mean, that's incredibly impressive. And I very few coaches, I think, would have been able to accomplish. I mean, we talk about Greg Schiano. Greg Schiano hasn't had 8 wins. Has he? Maybe he had 8 wins this year. How many wins did he have? 6, 7?
I think he got to 8 with the
bowl
8
win, didn't
with
he?
the bowl game. Okay.
Or no, he went to 7. He was 6 and 6.
So, but like, it's an incredible overachievement of expectations, and I think you got to put him. He won the Big Ten Coach of the Year. He won the Newcomer Coach of the Year. I'm going David Braun.
Before we get to your next one, I just want to make sure Sonny's comment is put up there. Sonny knows ball as well. Thank you, Sonny.
I think coming off of post 2023 head coach rankings, I saw that Illinois team played against Nebraska, and they were the only team that ever shot themselves in the foot more than us. That's coaching.
All right, John, who's your number 6?
I'll go Matt Rule here.
I like it.
So Matt Rule is a proven program builder. At every stop other than, in college, he has been able to turn programs around, from Temple to Baylor, taking them from like 1 win to 11. Very impressive. And he's starting to do it at Nebraska. He did go 5-7, but this is a team that, was really, really underachieving with Scott Frost. He's brought back the physicality in practice. He's brought back, having to actually tackle people in practice. The defense has improved tremendously. I think offense has been a challenge at times, but I think he's proven it at all of his stops that he's earned a pretty high spot on here.
I debated 6 and 7 a lot, but I'm going to go with Luke Fickell here.
Okay.
It's hard for me to leave a guy out of the top six who's made it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I know that was at Cincinnati and all that stuff, but he got there. Granted, he got killed in the playoffs, but he got there with a G5 team, and I think he deserves enough credit for that to be top 6. So, all right, Justin, who's your number 6?
Yeah, Luke Fickell. I'm going Luke Fickell for many of the same reasons you mentioned, just his success. And I think he is the perfect coach for Wisconsin. He was, when Nebraska was in the running for head coach, it was Matt Rule and Luke Fickell were, I had Luke Fickell ahead. I had Luke Fickell as my preferred option. We didn't get him, of course. So I think he's a great head coach. I like Luke Fickell a lot.
Very good. Number 7?
Kirk. No. Yeah, Kirk Ferentz. Damn
okay.
It. I wanted to move him lower. I got to go Kirk Ferentz here. Whatever, man. I don't want to talk good about him. Let's move on.
It's fine. Hey, I had to say so many nice things about Jim Harbaugh today. You can say 1 or 2, but that's all right. We'll move on.
Just similar to what John said, just what he's been able to do. Like 10 wins is not easy to do, especially when you have half a team and brain dead offense. So.
Yeah. My next one is Greg Schiano. Like much of what you said, and I also like the coaching staff additions that he's made lately. I think that's an underrated part of head coaching is making the right staff adjustments, and I think Schiano's done that lately. And the portal's really helped him. He's gotten some good players in there that he wasn't able to before, and I think they're going to build off this season and be a bit more of a problem than I think than other teams give it credit for. So, John, your number 7.
I'll go Fickell here. Like you said, he made it to the playoff with Cincinnati. His first season at Wisconsin, it could be argued that he underperformed a little. They're still figuring out that air raid situation on offense, but I think they'll do well this season. And he's proven it in the past. So he can build programs. Putting him 7.
Very good. All right, who's your number 8?
I put Schiano here. He's again, he's pretty much the best Rutgers could possibly hope for. And funny enough, they almost fumbled the bag and didn't get him. I was very close to fumbling that negotiation, but they got him for the second tenure. And let's face it, he can build a run game and he can build a defense.
Yeah, Tennessee almost had him too, but that whole drama that happened there. My next one is Matt Rule. Matt Rule, he can build programs, does a really good job. I think that he kind of got a bad hand this season with the turnovers by the quarterback and stuff like that, and injuries and all those things.
8 out of 11 starters.
Yeah. So I think he's a really good coach, though, and I think we'll see more of that. Kind of what I said earlier. Just he hasn't really done it in the Big Ten yet. But he has the potential to probably be above James Franklin if he's able to do some really good things at some point. So, all right, number 8, Justin.
David Braun here for me. Just completely monumentally impressed with what he was able to do. And I think the only reason he's this low is just, small sample size. Let's see what he does moving forward. If he continues this success, he's naturally going to climb way up this list. So, a lot to like for Northwestern there.
I agree. Number 9.
I had Kurt. Dude, I can never pronounce his name. Just go with Kurt.
Kurt Cignetti.
Cignetti. That's it. Dude, I don't know why. For the life of me, I can't pronounce his name.
I love that Indiana fans are all over Twitter with cigarettes in their Twitter bios.
No, just not a lot to go off of there. Short, not a super long tenure either in the Big Ten. But I just think what he's been able to do there again at a school that's not known for football. he's done a good job there overall. So I think 9 is fair.
Yeah, I think he's around that spot for me too. I'll say him soon, but gotta go with David Braun first. A lot of what John said, I just think that we need more than one season to kind of see it in the Big Ten. So that's my spot. John, who's your number 9?
We'll go Brett Bielema here. Obviously, had an incredible season last year. Took Michigan to the buzzer. I was at that game. I was definitely thinking, did I just fly from Florida all the way to Ann Arbor for us to lose to Illinois? So luckily, Jake Moody saved that from being the first loss that year. And even this year, it took a bit of a dip, but that was expected with all the talent going to the NFL. So I think the program, look, from where it was before he got there, a dumpster fire. Mm-hmm. Where it is now, a pretty stable program that has future and has promise.
Yeah, I agree. All right, who's your number 10?
I'm going to go Mike Locksley. And he's somebody who I think, a lot of us probably would have had higher, except, there's just, again, sample size and the various different coaches that have done things. And it's kind of hard to evaluate because some of them have, won national or gotten to, Kirk Cignetti got to a national championship game in the FCS. Like where do you rank these things sometimes? But Mike Locksley took a Maryland program that was struggling. You can argue a lot of that was Taulia, but he was able to build a pretty significant offense around Taulia. The defense improved this year. The only reason he's this low is because he hired Josh Gaddis. I don't understand that decision at all. And Kevin Sumlin, but Josh Gaddis gets a special place in my heart for WTF. So I'm putting him 10.
All right. I'm actually going to go with Jonathan Smith at 10. Sorry, John. I know that hurts you a little bit, but I'm just really impressed with what he did at Oregon State. I think that he did a really good job there, not just with one quarterback, kind of like you were saying with Taulia, with Mike Locksley and stuff, but with different quarterbacks. And he's building a good coaching staff at Michigan State, I think, as well. He's getting some good players out of the portal. Granted, some of those were his players at Oregon State, but still good players that he's able to get there. So I'm high on Jonathan Smith, and I think it's going to be a good season. Not a great season, but a good season for Michigan State. All right, Justin, who's your number 10?
Yeah, I'm going to go Mike Locksley here as well. Just, he would be higher on my list if, the debacle, towards the later half of the season didn't happen. But again, just, I think he's building something there that can be sustainable with the style they play. And, he's able to go out and, he's going to be able to recruit offensive guys to this team. He's going to be able to go out and get quarterbacks. I just think, just what he's done since he took over just has Maryland on the upward swing. And we saw that through the first 5 games. I just think the more he's there, the more he can get, the depth and the, hopefully bring some guys in that maybe are better, suited for his staff. But I like Mike Locksley a lot. Just he's made Maryland fun. So yeah, I'll put him there. And then I would have to at 11. I'll finally put Brett Bielema. Sorry, Sonny. Again, just coming off of this season, I think Illinois looked, at times like a train wreck. And I think at this point, Bielema should be. I think the team should look a lot cleaner and play a lot cleaner than they did at a lot of points this season. Again, the Nebraska game, especially Illinois, and that wasn't the only game. They just looked undisciplined, and they were just giving the game away left and right. I think they only scored 7 points in that game. So those are things that a guy like Bielema should already have kind of coached out of these guys, the small disciplinary stuff. So we'll see moving forward what he can do there. But I'll put Bielema there.
Sorry, I forgot to even put him there. I was looking at something in the chat.
Oh,
number 11 for me is Kirk Cignetti. I think that Kirk Cignetti had a really, really good team at James Madison, and I think that he's coming in with a lot of hype, and he's bringing in some good players that aren't just his players at James Madison. I fully expected him to bring Jordan McLeod in, but he actually went and he got Curtis Rourke out of Ohio, which I think he is a much better quarterback than some people realize. So I think he could be good for Indiana. We'll see. It kind of goes back to expectations. What can he accomplish? Those kind of things. But at least for now and what he has in his history, I'll go with Kirk Cignetti. John, who's your number 11?
Yeah, you got to hand it to Indiana for hiring Kirk Cignetti. I'm picking him. They could have just phoned it in and picked a coordinator and promoted them. They didn't do that. They went and they got the guy who's crushing it at James Madison of all places. He did get to an FCS national championship, built that team and did a great job there. Obviously, 11-1 his final season at James Madison. So. For those reasons, I'm putting him 11th.
Makes sense. All right, who's your number 12?
Okay. I'm going to go Jonathan Smith. He did coach Oregon State to have a Pro Football Focus top 5 O-line last year. Grew the Oregon State Beavers, obviously due to situations outside his control, due to a certain conference commissioner fumbling the bag. Oregon State was left basically swimming in the wind. So I think the move to Michigan State and what he's already been able to do at Michigan State with a program dealing with the aftermath of, Mel Tucker and that whole situation, I think he's been doing all right.
Yeah, I think so too. I will go with Mike Locksley in this one. My big thing with Mike Locksley is he seems to lose games every year that he should win. Obviously, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, those are really tough games for him to win. And I can understand like dropping one or two there, but just some of the losses this season and other seasons, it's like, man, you got the more talented team. You recruit well. You should be making these things happen. And also, like John said, the Josh Gaddis effect is also in there as well. So, Justin, who's your number 12?
Jonathan Smith, just based on what he did and what seemed to be a not a sinking ship, but a ship that was already shipwrecked at the bottom of the ocean. And so, yeah, a lot of credit to him. And again, like y'all mentioned, his previous 10 years. So I think just what he was able to do, puts him above the little trash cans we got left on the list.
Yeah, speaking of those trash cans, who is your number 1 trash can in the Big Ten?
You know what? I hate to even put PJ Fleck not last, but I'm going to put PJ Fleck here just because Ryan Walters made it personal this year. But PJ Fleck's little tight pant wearing, bald head, running around like he's about to play the damn game. It's really annoying. And I don't know where he's rowing the boat to, but he got lost at sea somewhere because I don't know where the hell they're going. That QB room is horrible. So, yeah, PJ Fleck is lucky he's 13.
Yeah, PJ Fleck did not beat Iowa until this year. PJ Fleck has had one good flash in the pan year. I can't even put PJ Fleck. I'm going Ryan Walters.
Whoa!
I can't do it,
man!
I can't do it.
Sink the boat.
In my mind, PJ Fleck, he's just. I mean, I don't like to be mean. I don't like to insult people, but he just seems like a little weirdo.
He is.
I don't know. I know Minnesota fans will get mad at me. It's purely off vibes. I don't have any statistics to say like, oh, PJ Fleck isn't great, but he just gives me bad vibes, and he loses coaches, and his quarterbacks are never all that great. So
and he always looks like he's on. I don't know if I can say it, but his eyes are always like this. So
I know where you're going with that.
All right, a little booger sugar, but
all right, boy. John, who's your last two?
Okay, I'm gonna go PJ Fleck second to last because he did have the 2019 season. He did have a couple of decent flashes and a couple of decent games, but his shtick is getting old. The only reason I'm like, it's still Minnesota. Minnesota's been pretty bad at times, and PJ Fleck has at least elevated the program where usually they're doing 7 wins and occasionally 9, and that's still better than they were doing under Tracy Claeys and some of the worst Jerry Kill years, and so I put him second to last. And then Ryan Walters, we just don't have enough of a sample size yet. 4-8 his first year, exactly what we predicted they were going to go. Just we haven't seen enough yet, and he could very well be due for a big second year, but with everybody coming in and it becoming an 18 team Big Ten, I doubt it. He's probably going to stick around 4 to 5 wins. So 14th, Ryan Walters.
And he talks a lot. In the lead up to our game, he was a little mouthy for where he's ranked on this list. So
yeah. Anybody in here? I didn't tell you guys we were gonna do this, but I figured I would surprise you. Any hot seat candidates in here? I'll go ahead and do it first. Ryan Day is on the hot seat. He's got to beat Michigan if he wants to keep his job after this season, I think. So
Ryan Day, man, I don't know. I don't want to say, dude. If Bielema has a failure of a season,
I think Mike Loxley is.
I'm just trying to get Sonny in there. Loxley definitely. I would put Loxley on there. I think Kirk Ferentz is too liked. No, I'm just playing. He won't get.
Yeah,
no,
he's basically God in Iowa.
He's Iowa. He is Iowa. So
yeah.
I think that.
You think PJ Fleck? Is PJ Fleck on the hot seat, Justin?
That's what I was thinking. I was almost tempted to say PJ Fleck, but yeah, it's tough just because the expectations are so low in Minnesota. But I'm gonna predict the future and looking at the QB room he has, he's not going to do well. And I think he might be on the hot seat next year.
Okay, so we'll say hot seat.
Yeah, he's on a very, very warm seat right now.
We'll say hot seat question. Oh, I messed that up. John, you have anybody on the hot seat?
Yeah, I'm going to put third base Ryan Day on the hot seat. He needs to beat Michigan. The offense without Marvin Harrison Jr. Woof.
Yeah, it was not good.
That was hard to. Marvin Harrison Jr. just showed how generational of a talent he is. Because without him, that's not a good offense. So yeah, he needs to shore that up he needs to hire an OC and he needs to be the CEO. He needs to hire a really good OC to kind of be the head coach of the offense and just be the CEO of the program. I'm also going to do it for PJ Fleck. I think, like I said, I think his shtick is running out, and he needs to prove it this upcoming year. If he has another disappointing season, I think they might look elsewhere.
That is just wild. We rank the second best coach in the conference on the hot seat, and almost
it's just because of how crazy Ohio is. Like, it's just so crazy.
I get it, man. Dude, I'm one of them. I love Ryan Day. I think that Ryan Day is just like a really good person, and I want him to succeed really bad. But at the end of the day, if you can't beat Michigan, you can't be the head coach at Ohio State.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Expectations matter, and they're high there.
Yeah. So, and you can't lose to Missouri by only scoring 3 points. I understand you're a third string quarterback but you can't do that. So
Ryan Day's in that tough position that we all talk about DeBoer being in, where you're following like the legendary, one of the legendary coaches, not the legendary, because there's been multiple at Ohio State, of course. But coming off of Urban Meyer, it was tough shoes to fill. But
Justin,
especially that long streak. Yeah, I figured.
It's so crazy because a guy who was a midnight kick away from probably winning the title last year, and basically was pretty damn close to beating Michigan this year. He's had 3 Big Ten losses his entire career, and yet he's on the hot seat. It just boggles my mind. It's like, who would want to coach for that team? I get the perks are great. You could probably get a nice $10 million a year, great facilities, NIL, etc. But the expectations, the mental health has to be down the toilet, because the expectations are you lose to Michigan by 1 point, the season's ruined, and that's just tough, because Michigan's much better than they were when Urban was playing them. I hate to tell you, Urban gets all this credit and everything, and 7-0. 7-1 if you count his loss at Florida.
But 7-0 at Ohio State.
But 7-0 at Ohio State. But he was facing Brady Hoke half of his tenure.
Yeah.
He was, let's be honest, he was facing the early Jim Harbaugh years before he figured it out and hired Mike McDonald. So I just think, it's just a different era, and the expectations, I think, are a little too high. And but he's on the hot seat because he needs to beat Michigan.
I would say the only thing that he could do next season if he does lose to Michigan, which is completely possible because he almost did it before, is make it to the national championship game.
Yeah.
I don't even say he has to win it. If he just makes it to the national championship game, gets a playoff win, shows he can beat a good, top tier team, then for me at the very least, I don't think it would be everybody, but for me at the very least, I would be okay with him staying another year.
I think if he beats Michigan and makes the playoff, I think he might be safe for another season.
If he beats Michigan, he's good.
Yeah.
If he gets 9 wins and beats Michigan, he's good. That's all people care about.
Yep.
That is a good point.
So, and if he gets 9 wins and beats Michigan, he might make the playoffs anyway. So
that's basically my point is I think if he beats Michigan, they're in. So
yeah. So, all right. Well, that's all we have for those rankings. I'm gonna bring us back to the intro because we're kind of hard.
There we are.
Then I gotta move us back. So, Justin, why don't you tell people where they can find you at and listen to you more if they want to?
Yeah. So Nebraska fans, you can follow me over at Nebraska Football at the Voice of College Football over on Mark Rogers' network, the Voice of College Football. And Sonny in the comments, me and him started the Big Ten Show. It's at Big Ten Show on X and Big Ten Show on YouTube. So go check us out over there for latest in Big Ten content.
Very good. And then, John, you have your own Big Ten show as well on top of your Michigan stuff. Tell people about that.
Yeah. I got to hang out with Justin and Sonny on their show. That was a good time. And, of course, predicted Justin and I predicted that Michigan would win.
Yep.
Mission accomplished there. Yes. So I have 2 shows right now because Michigan post game is, of course, on hiatus till August, September. But the 2 shows are Michigan Wolverines Live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Michigan channel at Voice of College Football. And then starting this upcoming Monday, whereas before we did a Big Ten show, it's like a 4-hour block with Mark Rogers the first 2 hours and me the second. Well, Mark Rogers is moving to Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And so you can pick up the phone and dial him and pick up the phone. And he has a call-in line that you can check out. But my show, The Ocho, is about to become standalone Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Our first guest is Sonny.
Nice.
And we're going to do a deep dive on Illinois football. And we'll probably have both of you on to do deep dives on Nebraska and on Ohio State. So, because we're going to go through all 18 teams and go, because one of the biggest things I've heard from the community, we want to hear more about programs that aren't named Michigan and Ohio State. Yep. We want to hear about Illinois. We want to hear about Indiana. We want to hear about Nebraska. So we're going to give the people what they want, and we're going to have a guest or 2 from each school every week to do a deep dive on that program. And then we'll have our Voice of College Football community panel to round out the 2 hours. So I'm really excited for Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern with the Ocho.
There you go. Scott's excited about it. Sonny's excited about it. So, yeah, I love the Voice of College Football. That's Mark does great stuff over there. We've had Mark on. We've had all of Mark's Big Ten people on. So, friends of the Big Ten Huddle over there at the Voice of College Football. So, thanks, guys, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope you aren't too offended by our coach rankings. But if you are, that's okay. Just watch next week and, it's fine. So,
yep.
Have a great night, everybody. See you later.